Garlic, both a vegetable and a seasoning for various delectable dishes, holds an indispensable place in Chinese meals. The Germans even hail it as a natural antibiotic. However, this celebrated ingredient faces unwarranted accusations in the United States. In the discourse of an anti-China politician in the US, Chinese garlic has been painted as poison, even posing threats to national security. Quite startling, isn't it? In this video, we'll delve into the US sanctions on Chinese garlic, discussing the following: guilty of fecal fertilization, the underlying political motives, the outrageous penalties against garlic, the US's tariff weapon. On December 9, BBC released a rather ludicrous piece of news. Rick Scott, a U.S. Senator from Florida, wrote to Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, urging the U.S. government to investigate the impact of imported garlic from China on national security. You heard it right, Chinese garlic allegedly threatens U.S. security, as per this American senator. Consequently, some netizens raised sarcastic questions: are Americans vampires, scared of garlic? Scott explained, Chinese garlic is unsafe due to its production methods being unhygienic. This led many netizens to ask, did you eat garlic without brushing your teeth, hence spouting such offensive words? But Scott persisted, the cultivation methods of Chinese garlic are questionable because of the use of human feces as fertilizer. According to Scott's logic, animal feces shouldn't be used for fertilization. If Americans consume Chinese garlic, it could jeopardize health, hence risking the entire country. What an absurd excuse, what fragility from the US. Can fertilization with feces really pose a threat? Next thing, in a war, forget cannons and guns, just bring on the garlic. Besides, isn't animal feces an excellent ecological fertilizer? It's not like Scott is directly consuming it. What's with the fuss? Moreover, the scientific community has long addressed this issue. A report from McGill University's Office for Science and Society in 2017 stated, human waste, like animal waste, is effective fertilizer. While the idea of spreading human excrement on crop fields may sound unpleasant at first, it's safer than you might imagine. Seems using animal feces as fertilizer is quite normal, isn't it? Could it be this American senator is ill-informed and lacking in intellect? In reality, there are political reasons behind U.S. Senator Scott's theatrical play with garlic. It's widely known that Scott has consistently held a tough stance towards China. Regarding Scott's statements, some netizens on the prominent American online forum Reddit commented, once you see it's Scott, there's no need to read further. And which Republican fool proposed these ideas? Oh, it's Scott. Since Scott has long been infamous domestically. What's the motive behind targeting garlic this time? Finally, in his recent remarks, Scott revealed his true colors. The Chinese garlic industry owes the U.S. over $500 million in anti-dumping fees, but what worries me most is the unsanitary conditions in Chinese garlic cultivation. In short, it's envy toward China's garlic industry. Garlic stands as a specialty vegetable and traditional export product of China, also being the world's largest exporter of fresh and refrigerated garlic. Currently, China is the largest producer and exporter of garlic globally, accounting for approximately 80% of the global trade volume. The U.S. is a major consumer of garlic, importing a substantial amount from China annually to meet domestic needs. Precisely due to this, innocent Chinese garlic has become a thorn in the eyes of anti-China politicians. The U.S. Government Accountability Office, GAO, released a report maligning Chinese garlic, claiming that China's fresh garlic has evaded paying over $500 million in total anti-dumping and countervailing duties. Consequently, for many years, Chinese garlic exports have been restricted by foreign trade relief measures, causing significant losses to related enterprises, including issues with foreign trade protectionism. In February 1994, in response to an application by the U.S. Garlic Growers Association, the U.S. Department of Commerce initiated an anti-dumping investigation into garlic exports from China, marking China's first encounter with a foreign anti-dumping investigation regarding garlic exports. By September of the same year, the U.S. Department of Commerce finally imposed a general tariff rate of 376.67%, whereas previously, Chinese garlic exports to the U.S. had a tariff of only 5%. Customs data indicates that since the U.S. implemented anti-dumping measures against Chinese garlic exports to the U.S. plummeted sharply from 1,787 tons in 1995 to 343 tons in 1996, marking an 80.8% decrease. Subsequently, the U.S. conducted four sunset reviews, extending the imposition of tariffs on different occasions: March 13, 2001, October 19, 2006, April 30, 2012, and November 6, 2017. On October 3, 2022, the U.S. Department of Commerce initiated the fifth sunset review investigation into fresh garlic imports from China. On May 4, 2023, the U.S. International Trade Commission (ITC) voted in favor of the fifth sunset review determination on industry damage regarding imports of fresh garlic from China, affirming that if the existing anti-dumping measures were lifted, substantial harm to the U.S. domestic industry might continue or recur within a reasonably foreseeable period. As per the ruling, the current anti-dumping measures against Chinese garlic remain in effect, and the garlic remains bound. In this determination, all 5 members of the U.S. International Trade Commission voted affirmatively, showcasing deep-rooted bias among U.S. politicians against Chinese garlic. It's quite obvious that the so-called anti-dumping actions by the United States are yet another misuse of export control measures under the guise of a generalized concept of national security. For a long time, the United States has often disregarded international law and trade rules, freely brandishing the tariff stick to coerce other countries into unequal trade negotiations. Seeking a pretext for accusation, they find no lack of reasons. Merely due to ideological differences, the United States associates everything with national security. In recent years, the U.S. has frequently restricted investments in emerging technology sectors such as telecommunications, semiconductors, and artificial intelligence, citing threats to national security. They've placed foreign entities or individuals on export control entity lists. Over 1,000 Chinese enterprises like Huawei and DJI have been subjected to various U.S. sanction lists. Chinese social media applications like TikTok and WeChat face suppression under the guise of national security concerns. The U.S. excessively employs unilateral sanctions and extraterritorial jurisdiction, not only disrupting the international trade order and rules but also damaging the legitimate rights and interests of Chinese enterprises and individuals. As of February 3, 2023, the U.S. has sanctioned nearly 40 major countries, with nearly 7,000 effective sanctions against entities and individuals. The U.S. stands as the country that imposes the most unilateral sanctions on other countries and regions globally. According to U.S. Treasury data, over the past 20 years, U.S. external sanctions have increased by 933%. In the previous presidential term, they executed around 3,800 sanctions, averaging 3 waves of the sanction stick every day. Clearly, sanctions have become the preferred weapon in U.S. foreign policy, making the U.S. a veritable superpower in sanctions. This year alone, the U.S. has initiated multiple covert sanctions against China under various pretexts. On May 30, the U.S. Treasury sanctioned 13 Chinese entities and individuals, alleging involvement in the transnational sale of illegal drug manufacturing equipment. On October 18, the U.S. Treasury announced sanctions against 11 individuals, 8 entities, and a vessel accused of involvement in Iranian missile and drone manufacturing, including companies and individuals from Iran, Hong Kong, China, and Venezuela. In addition, under the guise of democracy and human rights, the U.S. has hyped issues concerning Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Xinjiang, fabricating various bills like the Taipei Act, Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, and Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, to attempt barbaric sanctions against China. Driven by a habitual hegemonic mindset, the U.S. has made sanctions a routine tool. However, in reality, these sanctions not only harm the U.S., but also lead it to a state of isolation. The question remains, is it garlic threatening the U.S., or is the U.S. threatening China? The international community has its own judgment. Finally, it's advised that the U.S. addresses its chronic habit of employing coercive diplomacy and returns a fair and just international order to the world. This is the end of this video. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. We genuinely appreciate your support.